The first part is obviously the part we're familiar with. Do you have faith? Do you believe in? Do you affirm that? Do you agree that? And you can name creeds and gods and concepts, and people will tell you how important those things are to have faith in. But the other one is a different sense of faith altogether. At first glance, it appears, for example, back in Jabez Dawes, that he's being punished for not believing in Santa Claus. But I think it goes deeper than that. And that's because the word faithful conveys more than one meaning. And we blend them together and forget that they have slightly different aspects. And to explain that, I'll have to tell you about yesterday's wedding. I don't perform a lot of weddings anymore. They're just not as much fun. Except when I know some of the wedding party, and then it is delicious to do. And yesterday it was a church family, and it was a marvelous occasion. And of course, when you officiate at a wedding, it's customary for the officiant, that would be me, to ask both of the people getting married, do you take this person to be your lawful wedded, etc., to be faithful to them, right? Promising fidelity, which is not the same as do you believe this person is God? You see the difference? When we say faithful in a marriage, we mean trustworthy, that you are going to be trustworthy, whereas when we say we have faith in God, we think God is trustworthy. They're related. It's clear that they're related. The same way the word true and trust are literally related. They have to do with something you can depend on. That's why we say true blue friends, meaning someone you can depend on, not that they're empirically valid. True, trust, faith, and faithful all blend together to give us a sense that faith is more than just asserting a cosmic truth. It is believing that something or someone can be depended on. Now, when I say that, we can approach faith in a different way. Most of the weeks, a welcomer comes up here, and they often use words that say, doubt and belief work hand in hand to free the mind. And we say, how can that be? They're opposites, but they're not. If you think about a marriage, for example, they plight their troth, they pledge fidelity well before they've lived long enough to know that they can be depended on. You're promising to believe the other person is trustworthy and to be trustworthy without any evidence that person is worth, well, maybe a little bit. But when you get married, you don't know for sure that that person will be true to you or that you can be true to them. In other words, sometimes you have to commit an act of faith before you have evidence to support its validity. Doubt and faith work hand in hand. Those are my words that people sometimes read, but they're not just my thoughts. The great theologian Paul Tillich said, doubt isn't the opposite of faith, it's an element of faith. Do you perceive where this is going? That faith is putting your trust in something, but also knowing that you will be tested. Alfred Lord Tennyson once said, there lives more faith in honest doubt than in half the creeds. Honest skepticism may show more faith than blind obedience. Even John Calvin, God bless his soul, truly said it would be the height of absurdity to label ignorance tempered by humility faith. I'll say that again, it's a wonderful phrase. It would be the height of absurdity to label ignorance tempered by humility faith. And of course, Emily Dickinson puts it so beautifully. Faith is a fine invention when gentlemen can see, but microscopes are prudent in an emergency. Doubt and faith go together. They really are part of one another. And turning back to Jabez Dawes one more time, he is punished not for not believing in Santa Claus, but for lack of trust in anything. He puts his trust, he gives himself over to nothing. Everything is an object to be manipulated. He is what we would call in modern parlance a sociopath who trusts nothing and no one. And so when Santa Claus says he doesn't exist, he's saying a fact that already is true, because we know that our existence is not just what we think we are, but what others say we are. We only exist in relationships to others. So if you have no relationships to anybody else, if you simply are out there shooting BBs at the world, you don't exist to the rest of the world. So he was already a non-person by the time Santa Claus came along and confirmed the fact. What this means, comrades, is that we start our lives with faith. We don't end up with it. We start there. Much as when we get married, we promise to be faithful before we know if it will be true. Before we know whether or not someone is trustworthy, we extend them trust. Of course, we're wrong sometimes. And who of us here has not been let down, hurt, even betrayed by someone else? All of us, and all of us have done it as well. And then we forgive and start all over again many, many times. Because, in fact, we're capable of being feckless as well. But deeper than that, algebra of I'll forgive you and you forgive me is something more important. Faith is a basic human need. Those who lack it entirely truly do not exist. Why does the abused child still love the parent who abuses it? Because it needs to believe in someone rather than no one. Because we need to believe that people are worth trusting even when individuals don't live up to it. Yes, the need can and does overpower suffering, and it can even overpower rational sense. It is sometimes sad and even pathetic to watch people cling to people who hurt them. But far worse would be a society in which we trusted no one at any time. We've all seen the stories of the survivalists who take their families into virtual fortresses in their homes, surround themselves with canned goods and bottled water and guns, and keep the world from disappointing them. But is this anyone's sense of a life? The gospel lesson this morning, which I mentioned earlier on, reminds us that not even Jesus knows everything, and neither did Joseph. We cannot know for sure that the person we're married to, we're related to, we work with, we have as a next-door neighbor is worthy of our trust, but we have to believe they are even without knowledge. We do not know the person coming at us down the highway will stay on the right side, but we tend to believe they will, and most of the time they do. Thomas Merton, the American Trappist monk, put it this way: you do not need to know precisely what is happening or exactly where it is all going. What you need is to recognize the possibilities and challenges offered by the present moment and to embrace them with courage, hope, and faith. William James called it the will to believe. We need to do it. Should we not test it? Of course we should. Should we not also modify our beliefs as we know them better? Of course. But we start with the faith, the trust. Joseph had a dream telling him he did not know the whole story. Yeah, it says Mary's pregnant, but Joe, you don't know the whole show. Was he a fool? I don't know. But in a British book and television drama called Call the Midwife, there is this story that may make Joe make more sense. In it, a married woman gives birth to a baby that is clearly not her husband's child because it's black and her husband is white. The mother and the midwife are terrified of what the husband will say and do. He comes in, his face breaks into an enormous smile, and he says, I have a daughter. And for the rest of the series, we see him changing her diapers and perambulating her through the neighborhood. People are laughing at him. What a fool. Or is he? That's all I have this week. We'll be back next week and try again. See you in church.